Under the golden glow of the wedding lights, Clara stood trembling in a second-hand gown, her hands clutching a wilted bouquet. Guests whispered, "The maid is marrying the driver?" Her wicked stepmother's smirk cut deeper than any blade. This was her punishment for daring to dream above her station. Beside her, Daniel, the poor silent driver, watched with unreadable eyes, his old suit too neat for a man who claimed to own nothing. He spoke little, smiled less, but when he slipped the ring on her finger, a faint glimmer of power flashed beneath his calm. The crowd saw a poor man marrying a desperate maid. But who was he really? Why did her stepmother insist on this union so quickly? And what secret was Daniel hiding behind those quiet, knowing eyes? The minister's voice droned through the vows, but Clara barely heard him. The scent of lilacs mixed with the heavy perfume of money and deception. She could feel Judith Benson's gaze, her stepmother, burning holes into her back. Judith looked satisfied, victorious even. For her, this wedding wasn't about love. It was about control. A maid married to a driver meant no competition for her own daughter, Vanessa, who was too proud to marry beneath her. Clara's heart pounded. She wanted to run, but where? The streets had already tasted her tears. She'd spent nights scrubbing the Benson mansion's floors just to keep a roof over her head. This forced marriage was supposed to be her last humiliation, but somewhere deep inside she sensed a flicker of destiny. Daniel's hand brushed hers, firm yet gentle, and for a heartbeat she saw something human in his eyes. Something wounded. As they exchanged rings, thunder rolled across the sky, though the night was clear. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Judith forced a laugh. "Even heaven knows how mismatched they are," she sneered, just loud enough for Clara to hear. The laughter around her stung, but Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he turned slightly toward the crowd, his jaw tightening, eyes cold and assessing, as if memorizing every cruel face. When the ceremony ended, Clara tried to smile, but her lips trembled. Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "You have no idea who you just saved." His breath was warm against her ear, his tone neither grateful nor accusing, just hauntingly calm. She froze. Saved? What did he mean? But before she could ask, Judith's sharp clap echoed through the hall. "Smile for the cameras, darling," she chirped, pulling Clara into a staged photo while Daniel stood quietly at her side, a living mystery in a driver's disguise. Later that night, when the guests had gone and the lights dimmed, Clara caught sight of Daniel outside the window, standing under the rain, face lifted toward the storm as though it whispered secrets to him. The same thunder that had shaken the ceremony rumbled again. Somewhere in the dark, a black car she didn't recognize waited with tinted windows, and Daniel gave a subtle nod to it before walking away. For the first time that night, Clara's fear turned into curiosity. Who exactly had she married? The rain didn't stop until dawn. By the time Clara awoke in the small room Judith had generously offered the newlyweds, Daniel was already gone. His side of the bed was untouched, the blanket neatly folded as if he had never slept there at all. She touched the pillow. It was cold. Downstairs, Judith and Vanessa were already at breakfast, the clinking of silver spoons on porcelain echoing like laughter in Clara's ears. "Ah, the blushing bride rises," Judith said without looking up from her newspaper. "Your husband's already at work." Imagine that, such dedication for a man with nothing to his name. Vanessa snorted. Maybe he's just running from embarrassment. Clara bit her lip, keeping silent as she poured herself a cup of coffee. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from confusion. Why did Daniel leave before sunrise? Who was waiting in that car last night? Judith folded the paper sharply. "Listen, Clara, now that you're married, you'll still help around the house. Don't think this marriage makes you special. If anything, you owe me more than ever for letting a maid marry under my roof." Clara nodded quietly. She was used to this, the subtle cruelty disguised as charity. But as Judith continued to gloat, her words faded into background noise. Clara's mind wandered to Daniel's voice from the wedding. "You have no idea who you just saved." The phrase echoed in her chest, mysterious and haunting. Later that morning, while cleaning Daniel's old room, the one he used before they married, Clara noticed something strange. Tucked inside a worn leather wallet was a metal access card. On it was an embossed logo she'd seen once in a business magazine, Hawthorne Industries. Her heart skipped. That's impossible. Hawthorne Industries was one of the largest tech companies in the country, a billion-dollar empire. What would a driver be doing with their executive access card? She turned it over and something else caught her eye. A handwritten note on the back. If found, return to D. Hawthorne, level 47. Her fingers went cold. D. Hawthorne. Daniel Hawthorne? The thought was ridiculous. Still, she couldn't shake it off. That evening, Daniel returned, his shirt damp, his eyes tired yet sharp. She confronted him gently. You work for Hawthorne Industries? He hesitated, his expression unreadable. Sometimes, why? I found your card, she said quietly, holding it out.
He took it from her hand with measured calm, then smiled faintly.
It opens more than doors, Clara. One day you'll understand. Before she could press further, Judith entered the room, wearing her usual false sweetness. Ah, Daniel. I was hoping you could drive Vanessa to her dinner party tonight. Her usual driver's sick. Daniel nodded once. Of course, ma'am. The word ma'am carried a hidden weight. A restrained defiance Clara almost missed, but not quite. As he walked out, Clara noticed something in his eyes, a flicker of restrained anger, not toward Judith, but toward himself. Like a man torn between two worlds he could no longer separate. That night, she lay awake, listening to the rain against the window, the echo of Daniel's words repeating in her mind. You have no idea who you just saved. By the third morning, Clara had learned one thing about her new husband. He lived like a ghost. Daniel was gone before sunrise, back after midnight, and never spoke of where he went.
Each day she washed his shirts, always crisp, faintly scented with expensive cologne that no poor driver could afford.
Once she found a faint trace of gold cufflink dust at the hem, like something scraped against jewelry rather than car grease. Curiosity gnawed at her. That afternoon, while cleaning Judith's study, Clara heard the television blaring news in the background. The screen flashed an image that made her heart freeze. Daniel Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne Industries, addressing reporters about the company's upcoming merger. His confident stance, calm tone, and piercing eyes looked exactly like her husband. Same jawline, same quiet power. Only here he wore a designer suit and an aura that commanded the room. The reporter continued, Mr. Hawthorne has been absent from the public eye for nearly a year, after stepping down temporarily due to personal reasons. Rumor has it he's been living incognito. Clara's coffee cup slipped from her hand, shattering against the tile. Vanessa shrieked from the hallway, Careful, Maid, and stormed off. But Clara barely heard her. Could it be him? That evening when Daniel returned, Clara tried to read him. He walked in quietly, hanging his jacket, his face calm as always. You're quiet tonight, he said. She hesitated. I saw someone today, someone who looked exactly like you. Daniel's eyes met hers, still and steady. A coincidence, maybe. His tone was firm, yet something in his gaze faltered just for a second. It was enough she didn't push him. Instead, she waited, observing. Over dinner, he asked her about her day, her childhood, the things she loved. He listened intently, like a man hungry for truth. When she told him about her late mother, a kind woman who used to feed stray children though they had little, he smiled faintly. She sounds like someone who believed in people, he said. She did, Clara whispered. Even when they didn't deserve it, Daniel looked down. That kind of belief changes lives. When she glanced up again, his expression had shifted, something tender, almost reverent. But before she could ask why, he stood and stepped out onto the balcony, phone pressed to his ear. His voice lowered. Yes, the documents are ready. No, don't contact the Bensons yet. I want to see how far they'll go. Her breath caught. Documents? The Bensons? Daniel turned back, catching her silhouette by the window. For a heartbeat, he said nothing. Then he smiled faintly, hiding whatever storm brewed behind his eyes. You shouldn't stay up so late, he said softly. Tomorrow will be a long day. When he left the room, Clara stood frozen, heart pounding. The man she'd been forced to marry wasn't just hiding something, he was orchestrating something. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was his ally or his pawn. The next morning felt heavier than most. Clara woke to the sound of Judith arguing on the phone downstairs. Her voice carried venom. I don't care how you do it. Sell the stock, sell the land. I just need that money before the creditors come knocking. Clara froze mid-step. Stocks, land? The Bensons were wealthy, or so Judith always claimed. She lingered by the stairs until Judith's voice dropped to a hiss. And don't tell Daniel. The driver's too stupid to understand business anyway. A bitter laugh followed. Clara's jaw tightened. She wanted to shout the truth she didn't fully understand yet, that Daniel might be far more than Judith could ever imagine. Later that day, Daniel returned early, a rare sight. His sleeves were rolled up, his hands faintly marked with grease as if he'd worked on cars. Yet his phone kept buzzing with corporate alerts she'd seen only executives receive. He caught her watching. "Do I look that suspicious?" he asked with a wry smile. Clara didn't answer. She placed a small envelope on the table, the one she'd found in his jacket pocket. "You dropped this," she said. He opened it. Inside were photographs of Judith Benson shaking hands with a man Clara recognized from the news, Harold Kent, a corporate raider known for hostile takeovers. Daniel sighed. "I was hoping you wouldn't find those. Why do you have them?" she asked quietly. "Because your stepmother is about to destroy something that belongs to me, and she doesn't even know it yet." He walked to the window, rain streaking the glass like threads of fate. "Judith has been selling fake shares of a company she doesn't own. My company. Hawthorne Industries. She thinks she's conning a faceless corporation, but all the while she's been stealing from me directly." Clara's breath hitched. You are Daniel Hawthorne." He turned, the truth no longer masked. The quiet driver was gone. In his place stood a man with the weight of an empire behind his calm voice. "I was," he said softly, "until I realized the world I built was filled with people who loved my wealth, not me. I stepped down, went underground, lived as someone no one cared to see. And that's how I found you." His words stung and soothed all at once. "Then why marry me?" she whispered. He met her eyes. "Because I wanted to know if love could exist without power or money. But Judith forced my hand before I was ready." Silence hung thick. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing their wedding night. "Now," Daniel said quietly, "I have to choose. Expose her and destroy her family or protect you from the fallout." Clara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "If you destroy her, you destroy me too." Daniel's expression softened, torn between vengeance and affection. "Then tell me, Clara, how do I save you both?" She didn't answer, because deep down, she didn't know if saving Judith was what she truly wanted anymore. 2 days later, the Benson mansion buzzed with forced cheer. Judith had invited investors for a private celebration, a facade to hide her collapsing finances. Waiters served champagne, music played softly, and fake laughter filled the air. Yet underneath the glitter, desperation simmered. Clara stood at the top of the grand staircase, dressed modestly but elegantly. She watched Judith move from guest to guest, her smile wide, her eyes restless. Every few minutes, Judith's gaze darted toward the entrance, as if waiting for salvation to walk through the door. It did. Daniel entered quietly, dressed in a tailored black suit, no longer the humble driver. His posture, his gaze, the quiet authority in his stride, everything about him shifted. Conversations died. Glasses froze midair. For a moment, even Judith didn't recognize him. Then she did, and her painted smile cracked. "Daniel," she stammered, What are you doing here? You're supposed to be driving." Daniel interrupted, voice calm yet sharp enough to cut through the air. "Funny how things change." He walked straight to the center of the room. The guests, sensing tension, whispered. A few already recognized the face from magazines. Phones lifted discreetly to record. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel began, "I'm Daniel Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne Industries. I was invited tonight, though not by Mrs. Benson's choice, I assume." Judith went pale. "This is absurd. Some kind of trick." Daniel held up a folder. "A trick would be pretending to sell shares of my company, something you've been doing for 6 months. I have proof of every illegal transaction, every falsified signature, and every cent you siphoned into offshore accounts." Gasps rippled across the room. Clara felt her chest tighten, not out of surprise but heartbreak. She knew what was coming. Judith tried to speak, but her voice faltered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Daniel's tone hardened. "Don't lie, Judith. You even used your stepdaughter's name to forge access to my files." Every eye turned to Clara. Her breath caught. "What?" Daniel looked at her, regret flickering in his eyes. "You were never supposed to be dragged into this. She used your identity, Clara, your signature. You could have gone to prison for her crimes." Judith's mask shattered. "You think anyone will believe him?" she screamed.
"He's a con artist in a suit."
But Daniel only smiled faintly and gestured toward the door. Two men entered carrying briefcases, lawyers. "They already do," he said. The room exploded in whispers. Judith's knees buckled, her glittering heels scraping the marble as she tried to steady herself. Her empire, her illusion, was collapsing before her very eyes. Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Daniel, stop." He turned, pain shadowing his calm. "You wanted to save her. I'm giving her mercy, no police. Just exposure." Judith looked up at Clara, tears and fury mingling. "You did this to me. You brought him into this house." Clara's own tears fell. "No, Mother. You did this to yourself." The chandeliers above flickered as Daniel turned to leave, the weight of justice heavy but hollow. For him, the morning after the scandal, the Benson mansion stood eerily silent. Reporters had crowded the gates all night. By dawn, the empire Judith built on deceit was nothing more than an empty shell. The marble floors that once echoed with laughter now carried the heavy hush of ruin. Clara sat alone in the kitchen, the smell of coffee filling the air. The world she'd known had collapsed, and though Judith had betrayed her, part of her heart still ached for the woman who had raised her in cruelty. Daniel appeared in the doorway, no longer the impenetrable CEO, but a man stripped bare of all disguises. His tie was loosened, his eyes tired. "I didn't mean for it to end like that," he said softly. She looked up. "Didn't you?" He hesitated. "I meant to bring justice, not pain." Clara stared at the window where sunlight fought its way through dust. "You said you wanted to know if love could exist without money. I loved you when you were nothing, Daniel. But now that I know who you are, I don't know what's real anymore." He stepped closer, voice low. "Everything was real. Every word, every moment. The disguise was for the world, not for you." "But you lied," she whispered. "I did," he admitted, "because the truth wouldn't have let me find you the way I needed to." Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and gleaming, the locket. "I think this belongs to you," he said. Clara's breath caught. The golden locket, her mother's, opened with a soft click. Inside, a faded photo, her mother smiling beside a younger man. Daniel's eyes softened as he said, "Your mother once saved my life. Years ago when I was stranded in the rain after an accident, she gave me shelter, food, and hope. I never forgot her kindness. I didn't know you were her daughter until I saw that locket the day we met." Clara's tears spilled freely now. So this was fate. "Maybe destiny wanted me to repay a debt," he said gently. "But instead I fell in love." Outside, a car honked softly, the lawyers waiting to escort Daniel to a press conference. His company would recover, his name would rise again, but something inside him felt unfinished. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "Start over. Not as Mrs. Benson's maid, not as the billionaire's wife, just as Clara." She looked at him, searching his face. For once, there were no secrets, only sincerity and fatigue. "I can't, not yet," she said. "I need to find who I am without anyone's shadow." Daniel nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. "Then I'll wait." He kissed her forehead softly and left through the same door he'd once walked through as a driver. 1 year later, the orphanage opening drew a small crowd. Children laughed, running across freshly painted walls that read "The Hawthorne Home for Hope." A black car pulled up quietly. Daniel stepped out wearing no suit, just a simple shirt and that familiar calm. Clara turned, stunned. "You came." "I told you I'd wait," he said, holding out the repaired locket. Inside was a note. "Thank you for loving the man beneath the mask." Her smile trembled, radiant and real. The past was ashes. What stood before her was a beginning. As children's laughter filled the air, Daniel whispered, "The poor driver you married will always love the poor maid who made him rich in heart." And for the first time, both of them were free.